Hi, my name's Sean Connors, this is Outsiders and welcome back. This is going to be my second mailbag programme, obviously since the first one, which was quite a good success, and I've had quite a few letters and messages privately coming through to me. I thought I'd take this opportunity to do a second mailbag quite quickly. I have 3 questions that I'm going to try and cover off in this hour. Sorry, hour. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? 10 minutes. So without further ado, let's get on with them. The first question is from a gentleman called Winsword24. Or Eric, thank you Eric for the question, Salt Lake City in Utah. He says, hey, I've got a question. I'm currently running a Traveller Space Opera campaign using the GURPS 4th edition rule set. I've realised there's a conflict in play between 2 of my players that I'm trying to basically phase out, work out what the problem is. One of my players is into tactical combat, real life and in game. He's a cop, by the way. And everything being predictable and going to plan. The other doesn't care about the combat or character efficiency, is more interested in method acting and exemplary role-playing, so over-the-top role-playing style. Unfortunately, the second character loves to set himself up in opposition behind the first one behind the scenes, and often invariably gets himself killed, banished, marooned, etc. Any suggestions on how I can satisfy various players in the game group who want wildly different things from the role-playing game? Well, it's actually a multi-part answer to this question. The first thing is, as a DM, your responsibility is to be honest, is to set the standards of your game. So you should be very clear to all your players what you're going to tolerate and what you're not going to tolerate. This is certainly one of those areas that should come into. And I know where you're coming from, because often I've done that, where I've set the scene before the campaign, and even then I've had players come in who have totally different outlooks to it. So it does crop up. So maybe you've already done that. And by that as well, what I mean is, to be honest with you, Eric, is you need to be, even now that there's the problem, you need to sit them both down anyway and say, look, this is the problem, I want you to both be working together more often. It's not to say that you can't have disagreements as characters, but ultimately you should be working together. So that's really your part. You should try to get them to see eye to eye. Now, the big thing is the guy who is obviously a very good method actor and everything else, and often people, I hear this a lot, I've said this on a few programs where they say, that's what my character would do, and I'm a great method actor and all that. Well, you know what? That is an example there of poor play, because you're overstepping the fine line between good role-playing and poor role-playing. Sure, the other guy probably has his faults as well. He probably thinks that if you plan everything out to the detail, it's always going to go according to plan. And as we all know, as any DM, our job really, to be perfectly honest with you, is to always put twists on things. So it's not as straightforward as people seem to think it is. But even so, I don't think he's doing an awful lot wrong, that cop. If you ever see me speeding in Utah, let me off a ticket. But the bottom line here is, to be honest with you, the guy who's method acting really needs to toe the line a little bit more here. You're trying to set up, behind the scenes and get the other character into trouble and various other things. No wonder the rest of the group want to kill him, banish him and maroon him, to be honest with you. That can't carry on. It's not healthy gaming. Plus it can destroy your campaign. So bottom line is, it's about actually everybody coming together. Look, play your character, method act to your best ability, no problem. But you mustn't work against the group. I mean, that's fundamental, because if you're doing that, you're ruining the overall game. Who will want you to come along and play with them? Not many people, I don't think. So I think really simply, to recap here, talk to them all, bring them both in line, try and get a bit of buy-in from the guy who's very tactical to try and, tolerate a little bit of play from the other guy. Yeah, things have happened in the past. You're going to have to forget them now, guys, and all move on together, because otherwise this chap who's a really good actor isn't going to get a chance to express a character and actually still feel part of it. If he's going to make an effort to meet you halfway, then you've got to make an effort to meet him halfway. And as a DM, just keep enforcing, what you want out of the game, because clearly this has got an impact on other players around the table as well, and it can't be healthy. Anyway, Eric, I hope that's answered your question, and thank you very much for that question. The next question I'm going to cover off is obviously from Pathfinders. We seem to be having a lot of emails coming in about the system. Somebody asked me specifically, and I've had this question a couple of times now, it's just a great opportunity to answer it, regarding the very simple feat of power attack and cleave. And I asked about cleave and said, how does cleave work now? I'm a bit confused, because it's changed dramatically from 3.5. Well, very simply, obviously the prerequisites are the same, so you still need power attack before you can get cleave. It's fairly easy to do. But cleave now works in the fact that you have to have 2 opponents side by side. There can't be a gap between them. So you can't have one opponent, say, who's flanking you and one behind you, and you hit this one, then turn 180 degrees and hit the other. They have to be side by side. That's the biggest fundamental change to Cleave. However, one of the small details that's really key to this is that with Cleave, obviously the fighter type, who's got the ability, could look at both opponents before he makes his attack. And say you've got a heavily armed nutter standing in front of you and a much softer opponent, say like, a dire wolf and a goblin dressed in some sort of chain. You can make a conscious decision, because you're quantifying the battlefield, that you're going to go for the wolf first. If you hit him, because standing right next to him is this other guy, you can then attempt to cleave at the next guy with the same bonus. It's called using the soft option in my book. So that's in a very simple principle how power attack stroke cleave now works. So I hope that's answered it for you. If it hasn't, then just write back and I'll probably do a follow-up using the battle ball. But I want to try and avoid that if I can. I don't want to turn this into a tactical discussion, but I really wanted to cover that off with you. The third question that I've been asked by a few people is very simple. It's a really great question, this, and I do apologise because I've forgotten the guy's name. But effectively, it's about... we used a debate programme recently about magic in feudal world, fantasy worlds, and he raised a really good question. If there was too much of it, I guess that's his point, that the world would collapse upon itself because all these people could do these wonderful things and not need any of the services available. And he was trying to ask me how I quantify it, and it's very difficult to put into words. But anybody who has some of the very old D&D books, particularly things like the old Greyhawk campaign world and all that, what they used to do in Greyhawk really well is they'd have an area, and in that area they'd break down the breakdown of the various races. So it'd be like, humans 50% in a given area, elves a bit more tolerant in this area, it's very heavy forest and very big area of trees, 15%, and so on. They break all down how the 100% work. They also did the same with the sort of general populace. And you'd often see right at the bottom that less than 1% of a huge population, sometimes 1.2, 1.3 million people in a huge area, were less than spellcasters. That thing really stuck in my mind. And I have magic in my world tolerated, it's known about. I try to have a vision of that in the past, recent past, maybe only up to a few hundred years ago, that magic was almost, burnt. Magic users and stuff were often burnt at the stake. That sort of feel of it, and then over a period of time, it's become tolerated, understood, may not be trusted, and that's how I've looked at it. And so once you apply that logic into your games, that's why games don't fall down. That's why you've got a lot of companies now realise that there's a lot of mileage to be had in stories where you, for example, have a city that falls under a plague, because even if you've got a big city and it's got a number of religions there that you suddenly put together, if you start working out how many clerics of 5th level or better have the ability, or paladins, to cure disease, how many there are, and how impossible the task is. Once the disease becomes an epidemic, the city's in real trouble. The economy begins to collapse upon itself, and it doesn't matter that a few people can stem a little. It's like putting your finger in the dike crack. Those people cannot step the eventual collapse of that city. They can only offset it by a few days, maybe a few weeks at best, unless more support comes. So you can actually write campaigns around that, and it's very, very easy then to escalate it further forward. So I hope in the 3 questions in the allotted time that I've had, that may have covered off some of the programmes today. Once again, apologies about the cushion behind me, my bad back. I hope to see you all soon on another Outsiders programme. Until the next time, happy gaming, take care of yourselves, and see you soon. Bye-bye.